The stage is dimly lit. A single spotlight illuminates the speaker as they walk slowly to center stage, pausing for a moment before speaking. Look at me. Really look at me. Right now, in this moment. I want you to understand something that will change how you see every relationship, every connection, every human interaction for the rest of your life. When a man truly misses you, and I mean genuinely, deeply misses you, there is something he cannot hide, no matter how hard he tries, no matter how skilled he thinks he is at concealing his emotions. But before I tell you what that is, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever wondered if someone you care about actually thinks of you when you're not around? Have you ever questioned whether your absence creates a void in someone's life, or if you simply disappear from their consciousness the moment you leave the room? I pause, looking across the audience. I see the recognition in your eyes. We all have. And today, I'm going to reveal to you not just the unmistakable signs that you are missed, but more importantly, how to become the kind of person whose absence is felt so profoundly that it cannot be hidden, cannot be ignored, and cannot be forgotten. Walking to the other side of the stage, my name is Shi-Heng Yi, and I've spent decades studying human nature, observing the subtle patterns that govern our relationships, and understanding the deep psychology that drives our connections with one another. What I'm about to share with you today comes not from theory, not from textbooks, but from years of careful observation of real people, real emotions, and real relationships. There was once a student who came to me, tears streaming down her face. She had been in a relationship for 2 years, and suddenly the man she loved seemed distant, cold, disconnected. "Master Shi," she said, "I don't think he misses me when I'm gone. I don't think I matter to him anymore." I looked at her and said something that shocked her. "You're absolutely right. He doesn't miss you, but not for the reason you think." Pause for effect. You see, missing someone is not just about their physical absence. It's about the void their unique presence creates when they're gone. And here's the truth that most people never understand. You cannot be missed if you were never truly present to begin with. Let me tell you about David, a successful businessman who came to see me last year. He was frustrated because every woman he dated seemed to lose interest after a few months. "They just stopped caring," he told me. "They don't miss me when I travel for work. They don't seem excited when I come back." I asked him one simple question. "David, when you're with them, are you really with them?" He looked confused. "Of course I am. I'm right there." "No," I said. "Your body is there. But where is your mind? Where is your heart? Where is your full attention?" Blossom moving closer to the audience. See, this is the first secret I want to share with you. Today, presence creates absence. If you are not fully present when you're with someone, they will not feel your absence when you're gone. But when you learn to be completely, utterly, magnificently present, body, mind, and soul, your absence becomes a palpable force that cannot be ignored. I want you to think about the most memorable person you've ever met. Not necessarily someone you were romantic with, just someone who left an impression that lasted long after they walked away. What made them unforgettable? Was it their looks, their success, their achievements? Or was it something else entirely? Let me tell you about my teacher, an old monk who changed my life forever. He wasn't particularly handsome. He wasn't wealthy. He didn't have an impressive title or prestigious position. But when he looked at you, you felt like you were the only person in the universe. When he spoke to you, every word was chosen with intention. When he was with you, he was completely, utterly, undividedly with you. And when he left, the silence he left behind was deafening. I paused, reflecting. One day, this teacher was going to travel to another monastery for several weeks. I didn't think it would affect me much after all. There were many other teachers, many other sources of wisdom. But the moment he walked out that door, I felt something I had never experienced before. It wasn't just that I missed his teachings or his guidance. It was as if a light had gone out. The very air felt different. Conversations felt shallow. Even the food seemed to have less flavor. That's when I understood when someone is truly present with you, their absence is not just noticed, it's felt in every cell of your body. Now, let me address the women in this room directly, because I know many of you came here wondering about the men in your lives. You want to know if he thinks about you, if he misses you, if you matter to him. And let me address the men who are here, because you want to understand your own feelings, your own patterns, your own hearts. Here's what I've observed after decades of studying human behavior. When a man truly misses a woman, there are certain things he cannot hide, no matter how hard he tries. Walking slowly across the stage, first, let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus was a tough guy, ex-military, successful in business, the kind of man who prided himself on emotional control. He had been dating Sarah for about 6 months when she had to travel abroad for work for 3 weeks. It's no big deal, he told his friends. I can handle 3 weeks. But I watched Marcus during those 3 weeks. I saw the changes he thought no one would notice. It started with his phone. Marcus, who usually kept his phone on silent and checked it maybe twice a day, suddenly had it in his hand constantly. Not because he was expecting her to call, she was in a different time zone and they had scheduled times to talk. But he found himself looking at their last text exchange, scrolling through photos they'd taken together, reading old messages he thought he'd forgotten about. Then there were his habits. Marcus was a creature of routine. Gym at 6 a.m., coffee at the same cafe, lunch at his desk. But during those 3 weeks, he started driving past places they'd been together. He'd find himself at the restaurant where they'd had their first date, ordering the same dish she'd chosen, sitting at the same table. When his friends invited him out, he'd suggest going to her favorite bar, claiming he just felt like going there. Looking directly at different sections of the audience. But here's the most telling sign. Marcus started noticing things he'd never paid attention to before. He'd see a woman laughing at something on her phone and wonder what Sarah was doing at that moment. He'd hear a song on the radio and remember how she'd hummed it while cooking. He'd pass a bookstore and recall how she'd spent an hour in there, running her fingers along the spines of books, reading passages aloud to him. When a man truly misses you, his world becomes full of reminders of you, even in places where you've never been. Pause now. I know some of you are thinking, that sounds wonderful, but how do I become that kind of person? How do I become someone whose absence is felt so deeply? And here's where most people make a crucial mistake. They think it's about being more attractive, more successful, more entertaining, more available. But that's not it at all. Let me tell you about the difference between being wanted and being missed. Being wanted is about what you can do for someone, what you can provide, what you can offer. Being missed is about who you are when you're present, about the unique energy you bring into a space, about the irreplaceable essence of your being. I once knew a woman named Elena. Elena was not what society would call conventionally beautiful. She wasn't wealthy or particularly successful in traditional terms. But Elena had mastered something that most people never learn, the art of deep attention. When Elena looked at you, she didn't just see your surface. She saw the story behind your eyes, the dreams you were afraid to speak aloud, the fears you tried to hide. When you told her about your day, she didn't just hear the events, she heard the emotions between the words, the significance you attached to small moments, the hopes and anxieties that colored your experiences. Moving to a different position on stage, I watched Elena interact with different people over the years. And what amazed me was not just how much people loved being around her, but how profoundly they missed her when she was gone. Men would travel across the country just to spend an evening in her presence. Not because they were romantically interested, many of them were happily married, but because being with Elena made them feel more alive, more authentic, more themselves than they felt anywhere else. One man told me, when I'm with Elena, I remember who I really am. When she's gone, I feel like I'm sleepwalking through my life. Another said, she doesn't just listen to what I say, she hears what I mean. And when she's not there, I feel like no one really understands me. This is the secret to be missed. You must first be present in a way that touches something deeper than the surface of a person's experience. Pausing, looking contemplative. But let me go deeper. Let me tell you about the things a man cannot hide when he truly misses you, not just the obvious signs, but the subtle ones, the ones he doesn't even realize he's displaying. There was a young man named James who came to me in distress. He had been in love with a woman named Lisa, but due to his own fears and insecurities, he had pushed her away. I thought I was protecting myself, he told me. I thought I was staying in control. But now she's gone, and I can't stop thinking about her. I can't stop myself from... And he trailed off embarrassed. From what? I asked. From looking for her everywhere. I catch myself scanning crowds, hoping to see her face. I drive by places we used to go together. I keep the coffee mug she left at my apartment, and I find myself holding it while I have my morning coffee, imagining she's there with me. He paused, his voice breaking slightly. I even find myself having conversations with her in my head, telling her about things that happened during my day, explaining decisions I'm making as if she were there to advise me. Or speaking more softly, you see. When a man truly misses you, you become integrated into his inner world in a way that he cannot control. You become part of his internal dialogue. He finds himself asking, what would she think about this? How would she handle this situation? What would she say if she were here? This is not the same as obsession or unhealthy attachment. This is what happens when someone has touched your life so deeply that they become part of how you process the world. Let me tell you about another sign that's even more subtle, the way a man's energy changes when he truly misses someone. I had a student named Robert who was generally a very social, outgoing person. He loved parties, gatherings, meeting new people. But when the woman he loved moved away for a year-long work assignment, I watched him change in ways he didn't even recognize. Robert still went to social events, still maintained his friendships, still appeared to be his usual self. But there was something different. He'd be in a room full of laughter and conversation, and there would be this moment, just a split second, where his eyes would go distant, as if he were listening for a voice that wasn't there. He'd catch himself in the middle of telling a story and lose his train of thought, not because he forgot what he was saying, but because he suddenly remembered how much she would have enjoyed that story. While walking to center stage, but perhaps the most profound sign, the one that cannot be hidden or suppressed, is this: when a man truly misses you, he begins to see you more clearly than he ever did when you were present. This might seem counterintuitive, but hear me out. When someone is always available, always there, we often take them for granted. We see their surface, their daily habits, their immediate reactions. But when they're gone, when we're left with only our memories and our longing, we begin to understand their deeper value. I remember a conversation I had with a man named Alex several months after his wife had passed away. He said something that has stayed with me ever since. I thought I knew her so well when she was alive. I thought I appreciated her. But now, in her absence, I'm discovering things about her that I never saw before. I'm understanding conversations we had years ago that didn't make sense to me at the time. I'm realizing how many of my beliefs, my values, my ways of seeing the world were shaped by her presence. I'm seeing how she made everyone around her better, kinder, more thoughtful, not through lectures or demands, but simply by being who she was. This is what happens when someone of substance leaves our lives. We begin to understand not just what they brought to us directly, but how their presence elevated everything around them. Pause, allowing the weight of the words to settle. Now, I want to address something that I know many of you are wondering about. How can you tell if someone is genuinely missing you, or if they're just lonely, just filling time, just looking for attention or validation? This is a crucial distinction because in our modern world, we're often confused by surface level signals. Someone might text you constantly, but that doesn't mean they miss you. It might just mean they're bored. Someone might want to see you every night, but that doesn't mean they value your presence. They might just be afraid of being alone. Let me tell you about the difference between missing someone and needing someone. Need is about what's lacking in your own life. Missing is about recognizing something unique and irreplaceable about another person. Need is desperate, grasping, often selfish. Missing is appreciative, reverent, often selfless. I knew a man who thought he missed his ex-girlfriend terribly. He called her constantly, sent her gifts, wrote her long letters about how much he needed her back in his life. But when I asked him to tell me about her, not about how she made him feel, but about who she was as a person, he struggled. He could tell me that she was beautiful, that she was fun to be with, that she made him feel good about himself. But he couldn't tell me about her dreams, her fears, her unique way of seeing the world, the qualities that made her different from every other person on earth. That's not missing someone. That's missing the feeling someone gave you. That's missing what someone did for you, not who they actually were. Moving across the stage with more energy. Contrast that with David, another man I counseled, whose wife had been traveling for work. When I asked David to tell me about his wife, his eyes lit up in a completely different way. He told me about how she noticed details that everyone else missed, how she could walk into a room and immediately sense if someone was upset, even if they were trying to hide it. He told me about her laugh, not because it was beautiful, but because it was completely unself-conscious and infectious. He told me about the way she thought through problems, how she could hold multiple perspectives simultaneously and find solutions that nobody else had considered. When she's gone, David said, I don't just miss having someone to talk to. I miss her specific way of thinking, her particular insights, the way she sees connections that I would never see on my own. I miss the person she becomes when she's passionate about something. I miss watching her mind work. This is what it means to truly miss someone. You miss the irreplaceable uniqueness of their being, not just the role they played in your life. A pausing, looking out at the audience with intensity. And now, let me tell you something that might surprise you. The capacity to be missed is not about being perfect, being beautiful, or being impressive. Some of the most missed people I've known have been quite ordinary in conventional terms. But they all shared certain qualities that any one of you can develop, starting right now. The first quality is authenticity. I don't mean the superficial kind of authenticity that's become so popular in our social media age. I mean the deep, sometimes uncomfortable authenticity of someone who has done the work to understand themselves and is willing to be genuinely known. Let me tell you about Maria, a cleaning lady who worked at a large office building. Maria was in her 50s, had never been to college, spoke English with a heavy accent. By most measures, she would be considered unremarkable. But Maria had something that made her unforgettable. She was completely, unself-consciously herself. Maria sang while she worked, not loudly, just soft melodies under her breath. She remembered everyone's name and asked about their families, their health, their weekend plans. She noticed when someone looked tired or stressed and would leave a small piece of chocolate on their desk with a note that said, Para alegrar el día, to brighten your day. By voice becoming more animated. But here's what made Maria special. She never pretended to be anything other than who she was. She didn't try to impress anyone or hide her background. She didn't apologize for her accent or feel inferior because of her job. She was proud of her work, grateful for her life, and genuinely interested in other people. When Maria retired, something extraordinary happened. The entire office threw her a party, not just the cleaning staff, but executives, managers, assistants, everyone. Grown men cried. People gave speeches about how Maria had brightened their darkest days, how her genuine care had carried them through difficult times, how her presence had made their workplace feel more human. One executive said, Maria saw me as a person, not as a title or a position. In a world where everyone is trying to impress each other or use each other, Maria just cared. And that's so rare that when we find it, we never want to let it go. Slowing down, speaking more thoughtfully. This brings me to the second quality of someone who cannot be easily forgotten, the ability to see others clearly and compassionately. Most people are so focused on how they're being perceived that they rarely truly see the person in front of them. But when you learn to really see people, not just their surface presentation, but their humanity, their struggles, their dreams, their fears, you become precious to them in a way that nothing else can replace. I think about a conversation I had with a successful CEO who had built a multi-million-dollar company. He was telling me about his assistant, Janet, who had worked with him for over a decade. I could hire someone more qualified, he said. I could hire someone with an MBA, someone who speaks multiple languages, someone who could probably do the job more efficiently. But I will never replace Janet. You want to know why? He paused, and I could see him choosing his words carefully. Because Janet knows me, not the image I project, not the persona I maintain for the business world, but me. She knows when I'm stressed before I do. She knows when I need to take a break, even when I insist I'm fine. She knows that when I get short with people, it's usually because I'm worried about something I haven't admitted to myself yet. She's never judged me for my weaknesses or tried to take advantage of my vulnerabilities. She just knows me and accepts me and helps me be the best version of myself. Looking directly at different sections of the audience, see, this is what creates irreplaceable value. Not what you can do, but who you can be with someone. Not the skills you possess, but the space you create for another person to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to be human. But let me be very clear about something: this kind of presence, this kind of seeing, this kind of authentic connection, it cannot be faked. It cannot be performed or manipulated or manufactured for effect. It can only come from someone who has done the inner work to become genuinely comfortable with themselves and genuinely interested in others. Walking to a different part of the stage. This leads me to perhaps the most important point I want to make today. The reason most people are not deeply missed is not because they're inadequate or unworthy, but because they've never learned to be fully present, even to themselves. How can you be present to another person if you're not present to your own life? How can you create deep connection if you're always performing, always trying to be someone other than who you are? How can someone miss your authentic self if you've never shown it to them? I remember working with a young woman named Sandra who was constantly confused about her relationships. Men seem interested at first, she told me, but then they lose interest. They don't pursue me. They don't seem to miss me when I'm gone. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I spent some time observing Sandra's interactions with others, and I began to understand the problem. Sandra was so concerned with being likable, so focused on saying the right things and acting the right way, that she never allowed her true personality to emerge. She agreed with everyone, laughed at every joke, expressed interest in everything, had opinions on nothing. Sandra, I said to her after a few sessions, what do you actually think? What do you actually feel? What do you actually want? She looked at me blankly. I want people to like me, she said. But what do you like? I asked. What brings you joy? What makes you angry? What do you believe in? What do you stand for? Without pausing for emphasis, it took Sandra months of inner work to even begin to answer these questions. She had spent so much of her life trying to be what she thought others wanted, that she had lost touch with her own authentic desires, opinions, and personality. But as Sandra began to reconnect with herself, something beautiful began to happen. She started expressing genuine opinions, even when they were different from those around her. She started pursuing interests that actually excited her, rather than interests she thought would impress others. She started setting boundaries, saying no to things that didn't align with her values, making choices based on her own inner compass rather than external validation. And suddenly, people began to miss her when she wasn't around, not because she had become more attractive or more entertaining, but because she had become real. And authenticity, genuine authenticity, is magnetic in a way that performance never can be. Speaking with more intensity. This brings me to something I need to address directly, especially for the women in this room who may have come here looking for strategies to make men miss them more. I want to be very clear. The goal is not to manipulate someone into missing you. The goal is to become the kind of person whose absence is naturally felt because your presence is naturally meaningful. I've seen too many people try to manufacture mystery, try to create artificial scarcity, try to play games to make someone want them more. And while these tactics might create temporary interest, they cannot create genuine longing. They cannot make someone miss the real you, because the real you was never present in the first place. Let me tell you about the difference between absence and presence. Many people think that being missed is about being absent, about being unavailable, being mysterious, being hard to reach. But that's not it at all. The people who are most missed are not those who are absent, but those who are most present when they are there. I knew a couple, Michael and Sarah, who had been together for 5 years. Michael traveled frequently for work, sometimes for weeks at a time. But instead of making their relationship weaker, these separations seemed to make it stronger. When I asked Sarah about this, she said something profound. When Michael is here, he's really here. He's not checking his phone. He's not thinking about work. He is not distracted by other things. He's present with me in a way that makes every moment feel significant. So when he's gone, I don't just miss having someone around. I miss the quality of attention he brings to our time together. Moving closer to the audience, see, this is the secret. Presence creates absence. Deep presence creates deep absence. Superficial presence creates superficial absence. If you want to be missed, don't focus on being absent. Focus on being extraordinarily present when you're there. But what does it mean to be truly present? Let me break this down for you. First, it means being present to your own experience. It means being aware of what you're feeling, thinking, experiencing in each moment, rather than being lost in distractions or future concerns or past regrets. Second, it means being present to the other person, not just hearing their words, but understanding their words, but understanding their meaning. Not just seeing their actions, but recognizing their intentions. Not just responding to what they say, but connecting with who they are. Third, it means being present to the moment itself, recognizing the uniqueness of each interaction, the unrepeatable nature of each conversation, the preciousness of the time you have together. Pausing, speaking more softly, let me tell you about a conversation that changed my understanding of what it means to truly miss someone. I was speaking with an elderly man named Frank, whose wife had passed away after 52 years of marriage. Frank was telling me about grief, about loss, about what it meant to miss someone so deeply that it felt like a physical ache. People think missing someone is about wanting them back, Frank said. And part of it is, but that's not the deepest part. The deepest part is gratitude for having had something so beautiful that its absence creates such a void. He paused, looking out the window. I don't just miss Helen because I need her. I miss her because I recognize how extraordinary she was, how much beauty she brought into the world, how much better life was because she existed. Missing her is my way of honoring the gift her presence was. looking at the audience with deep sincerity. This is what real missing is. It's a form of reverence. It's recognition of the irreplaceable value of another human being. It's appreciation that runs so deep it persists even in absence. And this brings me to a crucial point. You cannot control whether someone misses you, but you can control whether you become the kind of person who is worth missing. So how do you become worth missing? How do you develop the qualities that make your absence felt, your memory treasured, your return anticipated? The first step is to become deeply familiar with yourself. And I don't mean the surface level self-knowledge that comes from personality tests and social media profiles. I mean the deep, sometimes uncomfortable work of understanding your patterns, your triggers, your fears, your authentic desires, your real values. Most people spend their entire lives running from themselves, distracting themselves, numbing themselves, avoiding the sometimes difficult work of self-confrontation. But the people who are most missed are those who have done this work, who know themselves well enough to be authentic, who are comfortable enough with their own company that they don't need constant validation or entertainment from others. Walking across the stage with purposey, let me tell you about a meditation practice that changed my life and the lives of many of my students. I call it the presence practice, and it's deceptively simple. Every day, spend 20 minutes in complete solitude, no phone, no books, no music, no distractions of any kind. Just sit with yourself. Notice what thoughts arise. Notice what emotions emerge. Notice what discomfort shows up. Don't judge these experiences. Don't try to change them. Just observe them with curiosity and compassion. Most people can't do this for 5 minutes without reaching for their phone or finding some distraction. But if you can learn to be present with yourself, you can learn to be present with others in a way that is transformative. I had a student named Jennifer who committed to this practice for 6 months. At first, she found it torturous. I realized I've been running from my own thoughts my entire life, she told me. I'm afraid of what I might discover if I really listen to myself. But Jennifer persisted. And as she became more comfortable with her own inner landscape, something remarkable happened in her relationships. She became less reactive, less needy, less dependent on others for entertainment or validation. She became more curious about others, more patient with their struggles, more present to their experiences. I used to be so focused on whether people liked me, Jennifer told me. But now I'm more interested in really understanding them, really seeing them. And it's strange, the less I worry about being liked, the more people seem drawn to me. Pausing, looking thoughtful. This brings me to the second quality you must develop if you want to be deeply missed: the ability to love without attachment. Now, this might sound contradictory. How can you love someone without being attached to them? How can you care deeply while holding lightly? Let me tell you about my teacher's definition of love. He said, love is seeing someone clearly and wanting what's best for them, even if what's best for them is not what's best for you. This kind of love, free from possessiveness, free from the need to control or own or manipulate, is incredibly rare. And when someone experiences this kind of love, they never forget it. I remember a woman named Patricia who came to see me after a difficult breakup. She was angry, hurt, feeling rejected and abandoned. How could he just leave? She asked. How could he throw away what we had? I asked Patricia to tell me about the relationship, and as she spoke, it became clear that what she was mourning was not the loss of love, but the loss of ownership. She had become attached not to her partner's well-being, but to having him in her life. She loved the feeling of being loved more than she loved the person who was loving her. Patricia, I said gently, did you ever want what was best for him, even if it meant he might choose a path that didn't include you? She looked at me as if I had spoken in a foreign language. Why would I want that? She asked, speaking with greater intensity. This is the difference between attachment and love. Attachment says, I need you to be happy. Love says, I want you to be happy. Attachment says, you must choose me. Love says, I want you to choose what's right for you. Attachment is about possession. Love is about appreciation. And here's the paradox: the people who love without attachment, who appreciate without possessing, who care without controlling, these are the people who are most deeply missed when they're gone. Why? Because they create a space of freedom in relationships that is incredibly rare. When you're with someone who loves you without trying to own you, who supports you without trying to control you, who sees you without trying to change you, you feel more yourself than you do anywhere else. And when that person is gone, you don't just miss their presence, you miss the version of yourself that emerges in their company. Let me tell you about a man named Robert who exemplified this kind of love. Robert had been married to his wife Anna for 30 years when she decided she needed to take a year-long sabbatical to travel and discover herself. Many men would have felt threatened, would have tried to talk her out of it, would have seen it as a rejection or abandonment. But Robert understood something profound. Anna's need for this journey was not about their relationship. It was about her own growth and self-discovery. So he supported her decision completely, helped her plan the trip, and celebrated her courage in choosing growth over comfort. Her voice becoming more emotional, Anna later told me that Robert's response to her request was one of the most loving things anyone had ever done for her. He could have made me feel guilty, she said. He could have made it about him, about our marriage, about how my leaving would affect him. But instead, he saw it as my need for personal growth, and he supported that, even though it meant being apart for a year. During Anna's travels, something beautiful happened. She didn't gradually forget about Robert or feel relief at being away from him. Instead, she found herself appreciating him more deeply every day. She would see couples arguing and think about Robert's patience. She would meet controlling, possessive men and feel grateful for Robert's trust. She would encounter beautiful places and wish she could share them with Robert. I realized. Anna told me that I hadn't just married someone who loved me. I had married someone who wanted me to become the best possible version of myself, even if that growth sometimes took me away from him temporarily. When Anna returned from her year of travel, their relationship was stronger than it had ever been, not because they had avoided separation, but because Robert's willingness to love without attachment had created a space for Anna to choose him freely, fully, and consciously. As in moving to center stage, this is what happens when you love without attachment. You create the conditions for others to love you by choice rather than by obligation, by appreciation rather than by need, by freedom rather than by binding. And people never forget the experience of being loved freely. They never stop missing the feeling of being seen, appreciated, and supported without being controlled, possessed, or manipulated. But developing this capacity requires tremendous inner work. It requires confronting your own insecurities, your own fears of abandonment, your own need for control and validation. It requires learning to find your worth within yourself rather than in others' responses to you. Pausing, looking directly at the audience, Eve. Now, let me address the men in this room directly, because I know many of you are wondering about your own patterns, your own ways of missing people, your own capacity for the kind of deep connection I'm describing. Men in our society are often taught to suppress or hide their emotional responses. We're taught that missing someone is weakness, that longing is unmanly, that expressing deep care makes us vulnerable in dangerous ways. But I want to tell you something. The capacity to miss someone deeply, to feel their absence as a meaningful void, is not weakness. It's a sign of a heart that has learned to truly appreciate another human being. I think about my student David, who came to me struggling with what he called his emotional unavailability. David had a pattern. He would meet women, enjoy their company, even care about them, but he never seemed to miss them when they were gone. I just move on. he told me. I don't understand why some men get so attached. I don't understand what they're feeling that I'm not feeling. As we worked together, it became clear that David's inability to miss people wasn't a sign of strength or independence. It was a sign that he had never learned to be truly present with another person. He kept part of himself always held back, always protected, always ready to leave. And you cannot miss someone you were never truly with. Speaking more directly, David's breakthrough came when he realized that his fear of missing someone was actually a fear of truly connecting with someone. He was afraid that if he allowed himself to be fully present, fully open, fully engaged, he might become dependent or vulnerable or hurt. But here's what David discovered. The alternative to risking the pain of missing someone is never experiencing the joy of truly connecting with them. The alternative to vulnerability is isolation. The alternative to the possibility of loss is the guarantee of emptiness. When David finally allowed himself to be fully present in a relationship, to be vulnerable, to be open, to be genuinely engaged, he